Hello, everybody, and welcome to coverage of the finals of the Spring Fling 2023. I'm Michael Hoyp. I'm joined in the booth tonight by Flint Espil. How's it going, Flint? You just joined us, so we're jumping right into things. So,
It's going well. It's
yeah,
going well. I'm happy to be here.
yeah. So, just to let everyone know, thanks to everyone for who has been waiting. David is one of our players. He's our Landstill player. He is caught in traffic, so we're delaying things a little bit. But Flint and I are going to go with an intro. We're still waiting on David. But he'll be joining us, and then we'll probably, by the time we're done with our intro, we'll be able to start the match. So, yeah, we have a matchup, just some classic blue-white against red. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think these were both of our players that were undefeated in the Spring Fling, so now they're seeing each other in the finals. David is the higher seed, and we are playing a best of five. I can bring up the decks, and we can talk a little bit about that before we digest what's going on and then move down to the match. But so first up, I have the Landstill deck. So this is David Daniel. Just kind of taking it. There's nothing that's like really stand out that's like really different than what the traditional Landstill list is. The biggest difference is he's kind of moved from playing Seal Cleansing to having all instant speed reactions to the disenchant effects. He has two Disenchant and one Dismantling Blow. And I think pretty standard is 1 and 1, or so he's got an extra Disenchant effect. That's basically the difference. And I think one less mana leak. Those are kind of the differences. I guess he has two Dust Bowl, which you don't always see. He does have two Faerie Conclave. So nothing like really drastically change about this deck, but it's just a solid just controlling strategy that we've seen throughout Premodern's history. Just really solid. It's actually like it's kind of waxed and waned in the last year or two of how popular it's been. And I feel like now it's been on the rise. And certainly at LobsterCon we saw a lot of people who piloted the blue white deck. What do you have to say about this list, Flint?
Well, I've noticed there's no black vice in the sideboard, so
So the
it's always
PTSD.
exciting.
So yeah.
It's always exciting.
So,
But I mean, I think its rise makes sense, right? It has a good matchup against Parfait and even against the Dreadnought decks to some extent, and so it's no wonder why we're seeing more land still. I, I think the only couple of cards in the sideboard that I'm curious about are the Teferi's response and the Wing Shards, but other than that, it looks pretty stock.
I do know that David had mentioned, like in his little profile that he filled out, that he really liked the idea of like putting a Teferi's response into the main deck, just because if the opponent like ever sees it at one point, then they like really will drastically change their game plan because of how much that one card does. Like if you're attacking with a Mishra's Factory and you're saving your factory, and like if it is like a Dust Bowl, that's probably like the ideal situation is like you're killing a Dust Bowl and drawing two cards. It's like a huge swing. So that's something that I think he's actually looking to like try and squeeze in the main deck, and it's kind of like a one of fun of, and something that's really interesting. I do kind of want to touch on the sideboard cards since we have a little extra time to chat. Um, we saw the Sligh deck that Will is playing. He beat Brian Selden earlier in this tournament in the top 8, who was also on the Standstill deck. What cards does David have in the sideboard? So he's got 3 Hydroblast and 1 Circle of Protection red. I believe that's what it is. Certainly more than
Yeah.
I think Brian had, because Brian almost had like nothing. I don't even remember if he had like Hydroblast. I think he probably did, but he didn't have like a heavy hitter like Circle of Protection red. Do you think is this enough, or do you think this is kind of like a sideboard that's kind of saying I'm not as worried about Sligh, or I'm hoping I'm not playing it?
I still think there's a little bit of respect here, right? I mean, 3 blasts and a COP red is pretty good. David's not running, like the bonus Enlightened Tutor in his sideboard for the duplicate of whatever enchantments or artifacts he wants to bring in. I mean, looking over his list and sort of what cards are bad, I think it's just a matter of how many cards he wants to bring in. I mean, you could make an argument for Phyrexian Furnace as a cantrip, but I doubt he has that many cards he really wants to board out in this matchup. I think if he's on the draw in game 2, some number of standstills might come out, but I think the blasts are coming in and the COP red for sure. And after that, there's probably not much else he wants to bring in.
Yeah, I guess I will touch on like the standstill effect. Like I think uh, the way it plays out in this matchup is if it's like the early or mid game, then standstill has some value. But I think in the late game, if your life total is even like around 10, I think playing a Standstill is a liability for the blue white player. Because what can happen is the red player just sits and waits and waits and waits. It kind of shapes a hand that they're able to deploy a bunch of spells for less mana than like your counter spells. All your counter spells cost 2 mana, I guess, with the exception of Hydroblast. But a lot of your counter spells cost 2 mana. So if you get into a fight, like the red player is going to be deploying burn spells that cost 1, and the Landstill player is going to be like at a disadvantage just by the mana effect. And then the red deck like can untap and then try and do something again. So I think Standstill actually is kind of a liability in the late game. So yeah, it's something that has a really, I think, is more dynamic in terms of how good it is early as compared to late, as compared to most matchups. Okay, I'll bring up Will's list with the Sligh. So we have that. So this is closer to something that you've piloted. Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of what the approach of this deck, the differences of what are, I guess, what we would call traditional Sligh, what the changes were, and kind of the reasoning behind them?
Yeah, I mean, so this was a deck that Will and I actually talked a little bit about, but essentially the idea is a lot of one drops, cutting the higher mana cost cards, getting more 2-wins into play. I didn't run cadets, I ran Goblin Patrol. I'm not a big fan of cadets. Think cards like Mishra's Factory and even Faerie Conclave can come into play in this matchup. And even against matchups like Rock, for example, a simple wall can steal your cadets. So other than that, it's a pretty similar list. And you're basically looking to play out a lot and deal a lot of damage early in the game. And then once you sort of do your thing, if you're playing against a control deck, then you just wait and you build up a hand. And then you sort of deliver the coup de grace, so to speak.
Okay, and do we want to look at the sideboard that Will has? How prepared for this matchup is he? Does he have a lot of tools? Do things change a lot in the sideboarded games?
It looks pretty similar to what I ran, actually. I'm just looking. It might even be the exact same
Did you have
cards.
4 pyrokinesis?
2, 3, 4, 5. I may have. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I did.
Certainly not a card that I would expect to be boarded in this matchup, but we do have David in sitting down, so I think they're just shuffling up. So we will be ready to start in just a few minutes. David is the higher seed, so he will get to choose to play. We are doing a best of 5, so the first and second game will be without sideboard, and then the third through fifth will have access to the 15 cards. All right, so I just want to hear in chat which deck are we rooting for? Who's the good guy in this matchup? This is kind of that classic matchup. Um, is it a matter of opinion? Do you think one is more factual? I kind of like there was a short period of time where I felt like Sligh was the good guy, but I don't know. In my mind, I think Landstill is the good guy, but I don't necessarily expect to be in the majority there.
I like both the decks, honestly. I played Landstill in a couple monthlies. I do like it. But I think that Sligh is probably the bad guy, just from a historical perspective.
Fair.
I have love for this Sligh deck, obviously. But I think if we're just going classic, good versus evil, the red deck is the bad guy.
Okay, I'm ready to jump down the match. Do you want to add anything before we do, Flint?
I don't think so. Do we know who's on the play for this? Is it
It's
top seed or?
Yeah, it's top seed, and so that's David. So
All right.
we will jump down, and you can let the players know that we can start. So.
All right. I'll message him right now.
We do have David Daniel on the left, so he's piloting our Landstill, the blue white in the left corner, and then Will Hirst on the right. He will be slinging the red spells. So. The chat is kind of divided in terms of who's the good guy and bad guy. So that's expected. So there are some people that just hate the blue white deck with a passion, and kind of almost the same extent for people who don't like the red decks. Do you think one deck is advantaged in this matchup?
I think the Sligh deck is, but
I think so too. I think it's pretty close, but I think when both players have a pretty good idea of what's going on, I think the Sligh deck is advantaged in this matchup.
yeah. So let's see. Looks like David's still shuffling up. Did you do a poll? Do we have time to do a poll?
Oh, I mean, I'm not gonna do it. It's just,
All right.
I don't have any of a. I don't know. I don't have a quick, easy way to do it, and so I'm not prepared,
okay.
and so. Brian Sellen saying that Sligh was 60% against Landstill at LobsterCon, and those were I think the two most popular decks that had played. So there's actually probably a decent amount of data. And then Francisco's asking if you sobered up already. So
I have. It took a couple of days, but I have. Yeah. Thanks for checking in.
How did you feel that next morning? Because I left before it.
Tired. I was very tired.
So. We'll have to
one
probably,
day for each decade of my life.
So maybe we might have to share some stories, but yeah. We're referring to LobsterCon if those who aren't sure. A lot of us had traveled to Boston just last week. But we are kicking things off. David is going to start just with an island, and Will's going to crack a Wooded Foothills. What will be the first turn play? Mog Fanatic, Grim Lavamancer, Jackal Pup?
Jackal Pup. Come on, Jackal Pup.
That is the best start for the red deck. But I would say a lot of times we see Will play, he just kicks things off with a Seal of Fire. So...
Francisco's gunning for me in Madison, but not for the reasons that one would think. It'll be fun, Francisco. We'll go out after the tournament and we'll go to like the square and stuff in Madison. It's a cool area if you've never been.
All right, we do have a Jackal Pup, so
there's the pup.
Will's on the board, and he's got a 2-power creature in play, so things are looking pretty good. Like anytime you have this recurring source of damage, and if it connects, like if there's no source of Plowshares here, I always like Sligh's chances. Just dealing damage over and over and over just really changes how effective your burn spells are in the late game.
It's the old shock on a stick.
Yep. And Will does add a Mog Fanatic, and he's fetching again right away. So if the Mog Fanatic resolves, then I'm guessing the next card I'm assuming he's playing a card right away.
Hey, BK. Got BK in the chat.
So after the red deck has played to the board and kind of has this early pressure, what is like David's like best response from the situation? He doesn't have a Swords of Plowshares. There's another Jackal Pup as well.
I mean, he just needs a Wrath of God now.
Okay, he's got an Impulse
soon.
Very soon. But I would say like, yeah, I guess he would get one attack for 5 and then maybe have a Wrath of God. But yeah, I think that's probably his cleanest answer from the situation. Mishra's Factory is just awkward because there's just likely so many burn spells in Will's hand that it's not going to block.
Is he's not main phase in this Impulse, is he?
No, this is end of Will's second turn. So. BK says pretty even boards. Yep.
Pretty much.
Yeah, we could have a very quick first game, so. And David tapping mana before he's playing a land. I don't know if that's okay. He's got a Mishra's Factory, so here's another Impulse. I guess if this finds Swords to Plowshares, I guess if you had a Swords, Wrath, and white mana, would you play the Swords?
I would play the Swords right now because if Will has Reckless Abandon and Fireblast, David's dead.
Okay, so team gets in for 5, and David goes down to 13. Yeah, so you're talking about a card like Reckless Abandon, which isn't always played in the Sligh lists, but this one is kind of a way to have more reach, and also it's sometimes a benefit to get rid of your creatures because of cards like Oath of Druids. So looks like
it was a Wrath. It
was
a pretty quick
verbal Wrath. So
yeah.
The Mog Fanatic will deal damage on its way out, and
Will still got a fair grip of cards over there, though. And
yeah, it's down to 8, which is effectively 7, thanks to the Seal of Fire.
And it's effectively 6, right?
Yes. Oh, did I say 7? Yes.
Yeah.
6.
No worries.
And here's
Throw it at his face. Yeah.
Goblin Cadets, okay. But
There it
yes,
is.
immediately gets thrown with a Reckless Abandon. So
No
David
Fireblast.
down to 4, effectively 2. There is 1 copy of Absorb in the main deck.
That's true.
Which would probably be necessary for coming out. But this is a situations like, I mean, 66% of Will's cards deal damage, and probably half of them just deal direct damage. And David needs to kill Will pretty quickly, which his deck does not do a very good job of. Will's going to attempt with a Grim Lavamancer. I pretty much, it feels like every spell that Will casts is kind of like a must counter at this point.
Oh, is he Factor Fictioning? He could just die here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Will has like a card. Well, he could have like drawn a bolt or something, but I mean, he didn't go for lethal earlier, so
There's the Absorb.
Okay, so Mana Leak Wrath, Postal Tower, Absorb, and Island. So are we? Oh, I'm definitely taking. I would definitely think that the Absorb pile is what you need. I mean, like, I guess there's a Grim Lavamancer in play, so I don't know. Maybe maybe that makes Wrath of God more.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to have an answer. I mean, if he's got a Swords in his hand, then yeah, he takes the Absorb pile, right?
Yeah, I don't think he does. So, but I mean, like, also you might just be like, even if you just Wrath of God there, like, are you even going to win a game if you don't cast the Absorb? I mean, even if you do cast the Absorb, I think you're just like the smallest dog, like, or the biggest dog. Like, your percent of winning is so low. But yeah, I wouldn't have minded a 4/1 split with Absorb. But
yeah, that may have been pretty good. Yeah, the problem here is even if Will doesn't kill him in the next 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5 or 6 turns, Will's just going to draw and wait.
Yep. And like, it's really hard for David to pressure. Like, you're never going to be able to tap out for a Decree of Justice. It's awkward to chip in for. We've got a Disenchant targeting a Seal of Fire. Do you have any responses? Oh, he's going to counter his own. Okay. All right. 5 mana, gain 3, discard a card.
All right. There we go.
I guess he technically made him activate the Seal of Fire. But yeah, the Grim Lavamancer is still in play and is online, so every turn that it's in play, it's worth 2 damage. Will's is only been on 2 mana. Okay, now he's got a 3rd. We're going for a Vortex. Should he be at 3? He was at 4. He went up to 7, then down to 5.
And then down to 5. Yeah. Yeah, we're good on life totals. So now he's down to 3. All right. Dig.
All right, Impulse needs to find a source of Plowshares. Even then, like, I don't, and a Disenchant kind of thing.
Fran, you're right. He should have swung in with the Lavamancer. It's a miss.
Oh, okay. Was there a factory up, though?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because he had cast the Disenchant and the Absorb.
One of the moments where it seems like it's probably going to be pretty... Actually, I mean, like... Well, I don't think it'll matter. But, yeah, because now you're at the point where you get to untap with it, so...
Just pass it back. You definitely don't attack this time, though. I know that. Plays a Seal.
Seal Fire.
We know David's got a Mana Leak, right? Yeah, he's just writing on the wall. Yeah. All right, game 2Z.
Yep, and I think that game, a lot of it comes down to is just like the early spells, and like you have the Jackal Pups and a Mog Fanatic. You you get the value out of them, and then your burn spells just are so much better.
Yep.
All right, so first game goes to Will. We are playing our second game without sideboard, so the configurations of the decks will stay the same. David gets to be on the play again.
Yep.
But I mean, that didn't feel particularly close.
No, that was a pretty straightforward series of games. Although Will had a pretty good start with the creatures.
Yeah, I think that's close to an ideal start for Will.
Yeah, Will wants to keep hands with 2/1s, and David wants to keep hands with Swords to Plowshares. If David can get past the first like 3 or 4 turns and cast a couple of swords and counter a spell or two, he's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, so you mentioned Will playing like 2/1s, so Goblin Cadets is one of the additions that he has in where other lists had played Goblin Patrol. I think Will has actually preferred that he would have Goblin Patrol in most matchups, but this is probably one where it's not bad to have the cadets. Like there's just the Mishra's factories and soldier tokens. So
it's not as bad. It's not as bad.
Like I think in this matchup a cadets is on average better than a Goblin Patrol. So. Blacked Inked Game says, "Hello there. I'm a representative of the Singapore Premodern Society." So, hello.
Oh, welcome.
Welcome. Glad that you can tune in live.
We got Tom Metelsky. Tom, he's got 3 blasts in his sideboard and 1 Circle of Protection red.
We are doing a best of 5.
Yep. Best of 5.
All right. Dave's going to kick things off with the Mishra's Factory, which, like, a lot of times we'll say, like, does that indicate anything about your hand? But I think it's the idea that you might be able to block with a Mishra's Factory and pump it. But
block that cadets that you're so high and mighty on.
Yeah, though, I mean, like, I feel like the red deck player could just attack with anything, and if you don't have, I guess you just need 3 mana to activate, to pump and activate and counter. Then you would need 4. So
getting a land burnt out is pretty brutal for the Landstill deck too.
Yeah.
Hey Jeff, I've got a bunch of the like pre-modern era booster boxes, basically like 4 through Onslaught, but I don't have the Urza block or the Tempest block, but I have all the others.
That is something you kind of like collect, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Just 1 of each. I don't know, probably like 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
And then I have some random like Time Spiral boxes and Dominaria and things like that that are fun to draft. Time Spiral Remastered or whatever, not the OG. Are we getting a message? I see.
Yeah, I saw some typing, so I was just checking the chat. I don't see anything from them, so maybe they were Googling a rules question. I guess it would have to do, it's probably with Goblin Cadets in terms of like when it transfers control and like whether it deals damage. I don't know if that would be the question. And I think the answer is no, it doesn't deal damage because it blocks.
No, it does not. It's removed from combat.
Yeah,
the effect removes it from combat. I mean, Will's got to swing in here. Yeah. David does not want to lose a land. Yeah. Okay, good.
Chad has joked, what's the worst card to make the finals of a Spring Fling Earthfall Brawl, and why is it Goblin Cadet? I don't know what it is, but I have to get there was a worse card in the finals. I can't think of anything. I don't know, like people are kind of hating on the Goblin Cadets, but here I think it's fine.
It's fine here.
Like a 2-power beater is what you want. Well, I mean, it's really awkward to activate the factory knowing that there's a Seal of Fire in play, so I can see that would be a reason why David still could play it. and it might just deter the Sligh player. Like if there was a situation where they didn't have a burn spell, or maybe they weren't willing to bluff an attack, and it might save you life. So I definitely like the idea of just playing the factory for David right away, even if he's not blocking with it.
Another seal.
We got 2 Seal of Fires against 2 Mishra's Factory. I feel like this is a fight that the Seal of Fires do a pretty good job here.
Yeah. And David can't interact with counter magic. I mean, he could have the Teferi's response, but he can't play it and activate, right?
Yeah, that would.
I think you swing in.
Is that a card you bring in this matchup? Do you think? I mean, the Teferi's response is on the sideboard, so it's not going to be in this game. But
yeah, I don't know if you, I don't know if you bring it into this matchup.
Say it seems like a lot of mana that where a lot of the game is determined from early plays. So,
all right, show me a bolt in hand. Well,
there you go. There's a
good.
bolt targeting the Mishra's Factory. So that was prior to blocks. So David now has the option. Oh,
Now he's got to use a seal.
okay. Oh, okay. So I was like, he had the option to activate the other Mishra's Factory for a blocker, but I guess that would make him lose too many of his lands. So he's going to double pump his factory, and then a seal will finish it off, and then the cadets gets in for 2. So I mean, not a bad exchange for David in terms of got rid of 2 cards for a land. So kind of like 5 life. I mean, obviously losing a land is not good in the early part of the game, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Keep your life total high is really important. All right, we got activation of Mishra's Factory. And so the awkward thing with the cadets is, like, if David ever goes to block, he's just going to get the cadet. So Will has to act before the block, and that just allows David to pump the factory.
Wow, seal number 3.
Okay.
What a weird board state.
But again, I mean, like, this is a situation where I could see David, like, pulling out of it. Like, if he has now a way to deal with his Goblin Cadets, then, like, things could go kind of well, because Will has used a lot of resources to kill David's land.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a standstill. So, what does that say about David's hand? Because I mean, obviously, he's not removing the Goblin Cadets.
No. 2 factories dead.
Yeah. What does he have a?
Interesting.
Oh, he. I guess he could have Decree of Justice. That's probably what it is. But this is like a cycle for 1.
Could be.
That's what I would think. Yeah, it asks, why didn't David pump the factory? He did. He activated it. He was going to go to block, but then Will used a seal, and then he pumped it to keep it alive, and then Will had a second seal to kill it. Or, well, second seal in that spot, but I guess it's his 3rd total seal.
Just draw your cards, Will.
Also, like, cycling a Decree of Justice against like a Goblin Cadets would be a really huge swing, because like you get to keep your token and you get the Goblin Cadets, so then you'd have like 3 power, and then kind of we just flipped a switch, and then David's like, oh, I'm in the driver's seat, you're gonna have to react and give me 3 cards. And like 12 life, it's not like a ton, but it's kind of an amount where you're kind of comfortable about. So as long as David keeps hitting lands, like a Decree of Justice for 4, then you start attacking for 3, and you can leave 1 blocker back, and then at some point maybe you're just attacking for 4. I could see David pulling this one out.
I think he should make his move sooner rather than later with the decree, though. I don't think you want to just wait and let Will continue to draw cards.
That's true. I guess, especially with Will having access to a decent amount of mana, like
Yeah.
when he taps out for Decree of Justice, there could be a flurry of burn spells pointed at David's head.
Yeah. So the sooner he cycles, the better. Just get the pressure on the board, force Will to make the first move. Don't let him sculpt his hand.
I mean, there's an option too that like if David has a bunch of lands that he maybe go like, all right, I'm gonna cycle and leave 2 mana up and counter one of the spells.
Hey, Gabe, we had a delayed start. This is game 2. Both these guys have actually been playing pretty fast.
Right. Will goes to discard. He's discarding a Jackal Pup.
So he's got 7 in hand. Ooh, that's pretty good for the red deck. Now David has to be real careful about cycling. Will doesn't have to attack in anymore.
Will discards a Curse Scroll. So yeah, this is the point where you're kind of just shaping your hand.
Yep. Yeah, David may have needed to cycle when he could have put 2 or 3 into play.
I mean, there's no like guarantee that he has a decree. Like it could have just been a bluff.
Been a bluff?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you're Will, you have to play around it regardless.
I mean, I definitely agree that those first turns, like, if he cycled for 1 and blocked, I mean, I guess you could use a spell. You're either breaking Standstill or you're like, I think you're just way behind on board, and then you would have to break the Standstill anyway. So, yeah, I guess if that's fine. If you're not willing to break a Standstill to kill a 1/1, I don't think you're going to attack.
Yeah.
So Gabe has asked if he has 4 mana open, why not try casting things instead of discarding? Well, 1, there's a Standstill, so it would get David 3 cards. 2, if David's able to like kind of figure out like how much damage he's taking from Will's actions, and then he could like say, okay, I'm not likely to die. Then he could cycle Decree if that's what he has, and then David would be able to untap and have a bunch of pressure. And so that's probably the biggest reason. Or it could just be the Will feels that time would allow him to get a hand that he could deploy more hit burn spells, more bolts and Fireblasts, or the cheap spells that he can cast a bunch in 1 turn.
It's going to be a really weird staring contest because if David goes first with a cycle, I think Will has to respond. Unless Will just has the absolute nuts in his hand and thinks he can end a turn, get a bunch of spells off, and still be okay the next turn. But
we do have a Barbarian Ring, so that's one way of dealing damage without resolving a spell. Yeah, we're definitely at threshold. So.
Yeah, Francisco, you're right. Every land drop represents like 2 to 3 damage.
Well, in terms of like burn spells from instant speed, there's just Bolt and Fireblast that are like the really like Incinerate's like not great on rate.
Yeah, but that's not. Copies. Yeah, it's not. But I mean, he's going to end a turn, right? Yeah. And then the seals can be played during his main phase. Yeah, and even that Goblin Cadets is a threat now because of Reckless Abandon.
But by the time like David's going to take an action at the end of Will's turn, so like Sorcery Seed spells, like you have to imagine David has some amount of permission in his hand.
Yeah. Okay, there it is. Here, let's see how it goes. All right, crack your Wooded Foothills in response, Will. Interesting.
How much are we cycling this for?
2 soldiers.
Okay, so like
he's got. Whoa, he lets him untap. Wow, he doesn't respond there. David only had what, 4 mana untapped? 3. Oh, I wonder what he's got in his hand. Like maybe he's just drawn more creatures. What?
Yeah, it could be. Well, so could be sorcery
Wow.
speed cards, or more expensive ones, or he. I mean, yeah, because it's certainly not lands because you'd be playing those out. So Dave's gonna attack one token at a time.
Yeah.
He still does he have a Mishra's Factory? No, he's just got a Dust
No.
Bowl. Okay,
He's got a Dust Bowl.
I feel like if he did, then he could start chipping him with that. I think. Standstill certainly has changed the dynamic of this game completely.
Hmm.
It's actually all lands, and he's totally bluffing. I don't know which player that was referring to, but I guess it could be either.
There is a factory on David's side now, so that clock's about to speed up.
Okay. And there's never a point where like Will starts pointing burn spells at creatures of David's,
No.
right?
No. He's got to go face. All right, here we go. All right. So end of turn shock.
Okay, so shock
Another
resolves.
shock. Ooh, well done. The player always wants to let these little ones resolve because they're like, oh, I can afford to take that. So you always lead with the smaller burn spells.
Yeah, unless you've got like a ton of counter magic, then these are kind of the ones you need to let resolve. Oh, so it was just 3 shocks. Then Dave's gonna go discard. He's gonna discard Island and Dismantling Blow.
So David's at 6.
Yes.
And Will's going to drop to 5 cards. No, he casts
He
3,
used
right?
3, so he's down to 4. Then he'll draw to 5.
Yeah, okay.
And so cards you're thinking about are like Fireblast, and there still is a Barbarian Ring in play. Ooh, this Cadets is looking eager. Right, Mog Fanatic.
Okay.
That might be a card that you need to counter.
So he got 4 in hand. David can always Swords of Factory if he needs to stay alive, too.
So that last turn, Will deployed all his spells while playing around Mana Link, right? He never. That would probably be a reason why he didn't play more spells.
Yeah, he did.
He didn't want to make any of them a Mana Link
Yeah.
card. So I think Will is just playing around this card and trying to make it a dead card in David's hand.
So David's effectively at 4. Ooh, all right. Cycling for 1.
Okay.
He's got how much blue mana untapped? 3?
He's got, yeah, I think 3 blue sources, but it was 6 total mana.
Okay.
All right, so David gets attack in with 2. The Mog Fanatic is not blocking. Okay, we got Lightning Bolt targeting David. So he's tapping blue mana. Probably Counterspell here.
Or maybe an Absorb. Grabbed 3.
Could be a Forbid
He's
as
going
well.
with 2. I wonder why Will's forcing it now. He's not dying next turn.
If you're gonna cast a 3 mana spell that I don't know.
Seems a little overeager.
Yeah, I will say like if you're playing around Mana Leak, there's not that many counter spells in David's deck because there's 4 counter spells, 1 Forbid, 1 Absorb. So it's not like a mono blue deck that's just like all counter spells and stuff. So because usually just getting a counterspell and then untapping kind of feels bad, but I don't know. Maybe you're just trying to run them out. Here we're deploying shock.
The fourth shock.
David at 6, effectively at 4 thanks to Barbarian Ring.
Mm-hmm.
And a card that's always in the back of your mind when you're playing against these red decks is Fireblast.
Yep.
So really no life total is safe. But I will say, I mean, like, Will's at 8.
There's the absorb.
Oh, this is a huge card.
That's pretty good.
This is a spot where like 3 life is really massive. Because Will's life total is not that high, and David does have a decent amount of pressure in play. So, like, just buying a turn, I mean, this is almost like more than a turn. So, in response to this absorb, we have a Fireblast. This is a pretty much a must counter. We do have a counterspell.
Oof.
Okay, and so that absorb resolves, and then David goes up to 9. Is he going to be able to pull this one out?
I don't know.
I mean,
this is all David's end step, right?
That exchange certainly seemed like it was in David's favor. like countering a Fireblast and resolving an absorb seems pretty much close to exactly what you need to have happen. How many cards does Will have? Is it just 2?
Yeah.
Not very many.
Mm.
So if he's thinking, what kind of cards would make you think in this position?
I don't know, but David's only got 2 blue mana untapped, and they're both Adarkar Wastes, right?
Okay.
Your position's not going to get much better.
Oh, okay. So asking about counter magic, absorb, counterspell, and mana leak are in the graveyard.
I think you got to go for it, man. So what's the play? Sack the Fanatic to kill the soldier, swing in. When he activates his factory, hope that he doesn't have enough mana to stop your last 2 cards.
I think he's got to have 2 cards to begin with. So, I mean, it might be a card like Ball Lightning in terms of spending 3 mana and playing into mana leak. Whether it's worth trying to wait to draw a 6th land. No, we're just attacking. So, Factory would get activated. I think I would block Factory on a Mog Fanatic and then the token on the Cadets. I guess you could do it the other way around too. And maybe it's better for the token to block the Fanatic.
What? Is he shot the ring at the factory?
Yes. And so the Smog Fanatic will get rid of the token. Or is it getting rid of the factory? If you get rid of the token, then your Cadets gets in for 2.
So you...
Well, I guess I shouldn't say that, sure. Like, is there no Swords to Plowshares from David? Okay.
I mean, there probably is, right?
Okay, so I would say this game's gone a long time without one of those.
This doesn't feel great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a situation where Will felt like it was like a confident line, but I think it was in his mind what the best thing he could do in the situation. So David clears the board from Will and still has a presence where he's attacking for 4. We have a main phase Factor Fiction.
No, that's a 4-1 pile, I think.
Yeah, that counterspell you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, well, David takes the smaller pile with Mishra's Factory and Swords of Plowshares. So I guess that might indicate that he just has counter magic in his,
Yeah.
and that the added clock is valuable. So he gets in for 5 thanks to that factory that he got with the Factor Fiction. And
This might be game.
yes, I think David's going to take the second game. Will it pass the turn? I think you just fire up both factories. Nope, he's just going to attack for 5. And if Will reacts, then maybe... So he's going to cast a bolt targeting probably the factory. Is this something you fight? Yes, he could. Okay, shot. Yep.
Yeah. If he's building the factory at that point, he's lost. So it's
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, David
All right.
equalizes. So now we get to go to Sideboard games and see how that changes things. So let me jump over to the decks. And first, we're looking at the Sligh deck. So 2 Flaring Pain, 2 Red Elemental Blast, 2 Pyroblast, 4 Pyrokinesis, 2 Crash, or 3 Crash, and 2 Meltdown. So Flaring Pain is a card. There's only 1 Circle Protection red, but it is very powerful if it does come into play. And then I think the 4 Blasts are cards I'm looking at. What do you take out in this matchup?
I take out the Ball Lightnings.
Okay, 2 Ball Lightning.
And I take out, how many lands does he run in? 3, 6, 9, 13, 16, 20. I probably take out 2 lands.
2 lands.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 lands and 2 balls. It's 4. That's your 4 blasts. And then he wants to bring in probably 1 Flaring Pain. So I would probably take out. I'd probably take out a Goblin Cadet.
Okay.
Actually, I'd probably take out a Vortex.
I would say like Vortex
honestly.
seems like a card.
I'd probably take out a Vortex. I'm going to close this my shades here. You can see the sun's getting me. Hold on one sec.
I'm going to bring up David's deck. So we're looking at 3 Hydroblasts that almost assuredly come in, as well as the Circle Protection red. We did kind of talk about Teferi's response. So one of the interesting cards are like the Disenchants or Dismantling Blow. And I don't know how much of a priority you want on those. Like the cards of Curse Scroll and Silver Vortex are impactful cards, but beyond that, they're like pretty narrow. The other card that's a little bit awkward is Wrath of God. That it's like there's not too many situations. Like the situations where it's good are usually the games that you're like really far behind, and it still might not be enough. So I don't know if that's a card that you take out. Also, like you could got a card like Standstill, because we talked about how that's a card that has some variability in terms of when you play it. It did work out well there for David in that game, that it came down and the game went on a bunch of turns. Will kind of shaped his hand and it wasn't enough. So is humility worth it? I think it's is it better than Wrath of God? I don't know.
Yeah, we got Brian Selden in chat here. What would Selden do?
Yes.
WWSD.
The one nice thing about humility is you could play it proactively, but this is type of a matchup where you don't really have that luxury very often, so I don't know if that has a lot of value. But are you ever bringing in cards like Phyrexian Furnace or Tormod's Crypt?
Probably not.
I could see the Furnace maybe, that like you could like what if you just cut all those standstills and just brought in, so if you just cut like the standstills and a Wrath, Humility, and 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and like 2 of the Disenchant effects. 8 cards. Bringing in Hydroblast, Furnace, Circle, that's 5. Teferi's Response, and I don't know, is Tormod's Crypt Wing Shards? Would you ever bring in Wing Shards?
No. Negative.
I want to know what matchup that's for. Is that the Goblins deck when they War Chief and Pile Driver and then attack, and then you get to get them both?
Probably. I mean, what cards are like actively bad in this matchup? Dismantling Blow?
I mean, it's only because it has so few targets, and you probably never want to tap 6 mana.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Dismantling Blow, maybe Humility, maybe you shave a Standstill or 2, and then you just bring in the 4. And there's not a lot of cards he wants to take out, I don't think. Maybe he takes out 1 Factor Fiction. I mean, as long as he has the early game against Will, his chances of winning go way, 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 way up.
Yeah, so not like a ton of. I guess their game plans pretty much stay the same. It's not like sometimes you see a sideboard where they have Warmth and 2 Enlightened Tutors or something on the sideboard, and their game plan really becomes like resolve a Warmth and keep a Sulfuric Vortex off the board. That's not really what's going on here. It's more of just the traditional blue-white counter, kind of play that fair Magic game. Do you think one player gets a more significant advantage from access to the sideboard?
I think it's pretty fair for both, right? I mean, Will has 4 blasts, whereas David has 3, but that's Circle Protection Red is so good.
Mm-hmm.
If he draws that early, I mean, he can just slow the game down so much.
Yeah, I will say like with David just having a few more cards that interact at a very cheap mana, that's very beneficial. Like just being able to kill a Jackal Pup so you're not taking 2 and taking 4 to 6 damage from it can really change the way that a game plays out.
Absolutely.
All right. Tom has chimed in for sideboarding. He says +3 Hydroblast, +1 Circle Protection Red, -1 Standstill, -1 Factor Fiction, -1 Decree, -1 Blow. That's more Disenchants I would probably leave in, but we're already starting. Will is going to start things off with a Mog Fanatic, and David's going to play a Coastal Tower and an Island. So
Shock.
And a quick shock from Will. So these are kind of the hands, like as if you're deploying your burn spells early. Probably means a little bit something different of the texture of your hand. I guess, yeah, Francisco had talked about the bringing in a card like Annul. And there are 4 Seal of Fires in addition to like the Curse Scrolls and the Sulfuric Vortex. And I think some copies of Annul actually could be pretty good because just that cheap interaction is very appealing.
All right, so what's Will going to do here? I mean, he's got to get that early pressure. There's the swords. Oh, we got a signature there.
Maybe that was something that happened at LobsterCon. Jeff Menges was at in Boston.
It's looking very good for David.
Yeah, with no recurring threat, Will on 2 land, and David developing.
David just wants to land a Standstill here.
I think
Hopefully
that's what he's doing.
A blast.
Unless it's a Circle Protection Red. It is.
Oh, even better. All right, now we've got quite an uphill battle for Will here.
So, how do the games usually go when there is a circle in play?
You've got to be ahead already. I mean, in if you don't already have creatures on the board to tap down some of the mana, then you're kind of in a bad spot.
Yeah, I guess there's different ways. Like if your opponent is short on mana, then having kind of choking them, which is much easier when you have a recurring source of damage like a creature. The other way is
Oh, and all.
okay. So we
There
do
it
see
is.
Annul. So the other way is Flaring Pain,
Yeah,
which
I mean, yeah. So that's why Flaming Pain is in there, right? But you still have to have some sort of recurring damage. Hopefully, not Vortex. um, you know what I mean? And without that, in terms of a way to start to choke David on mana, if it's just Will's going to try to go like 1-for-1 with spells, it's not going to work out.
there is a little bit of tension with David having Decree of Justice if he's going to want to cycle that at some point. I think just probably leaving like 2 to 3 mana is probably enough though for the circle protection. There is kind of a risk reward in terms of like cycling the decree early because then you don't feel so bad about tapping out. Uh, but then because then you can chip in for damage a lot earlier. But then later in the game, you kind of want to maybe be more reserved because it's more likely that Will has that critical mass of burn spells where he'd just be able to kill you in one shot. All right, Will has found a Barbarian Ring, which is a card that can get around Circle Protection Red. But
This is true.
with David at 15, uh, you'll need a few more Barbarian Rings.
Gonna need a bigger boat,
Yes.
as they say.
Yeah, this game is very different with the Circle Protection Red involved and in play.
Yeah.
It makes Will's cards look pretty ineffective. Basically, 1 mana can turn into a counterspell.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, you just have to hope they don't draw it. And David drew it.
Yep. Will is thumbing through his hand. It looks like does he have a full grip? Is he moving to discard?
Yeah.
Yes, he is. A Reckless Abandon. Been discarded.
I mean, David's a patient enough player. He's not gonna overextend ever, I don't think, in this game. So Will's chances of winning are slim to none, I would think, at this point.
All right, Grim Lavamancer is cast. This seems like a good one to counter, assuming that David has some in his hand. You're not as worried about burn spells because of Circle Protection Red, and this is a recurring source of damage, at least for the short term, because there is a limited amount of cards in the graveyard, but a pretty full stock for Will right now.
Yeah.
All right, David is at 15 right now. Will he go like with not counting at his own fetch lands? Will his life total go any lower this game?
Um,
Well, I guess Barbarian Ring is a card, but I don't know if Will's going to be activating Barbarian Ring while David's at 15.
yeah, it might go just a little bit lower.
I guess getting like a Mog Fanatic in play or something might lead to some amount of damage.
Pop, 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 pop.
Is Jackal Pup a scary card here? Like, so you have 2 factories. You have a bunch of mana because of Circuit Protection Red.
I mean, he's got swords, right?
Yep.
He's probably just going to swords it.
I'll note that Will has discarded a Ball Lightning, so there's at least one still in his deck. But that's clearly a card that doesn't line up very well against Circle Protection Red.
We kept the Ball Lightnings in, huh? Interesting.
What it looks like, yes.
I do not like them in this matchup.
There's a Ball Lightning in the graveyard. It got discarded.
It's a special Ball Lightning that just goes straight to the graveyard. It doesn't even get to attack.
Clearly not Flint's.
Nope. I'll take no part in that Ball Lightning. Oh, wow.
So Fact or Fiction gets Pyroblasted. Will has found another Barbarian Ring. Yeah, Brian has noted that David must have all gas in his hand if he's missing land drops.
Yeah.
He's going to be cycling a Decree. He's going to be cycling it for 2. He's leaving up 4 mana. Is Will thinking about doing something at this point? I mean,
maybe he's going to cast a mana short.
It might be a spot where you're trying to kill the tokens, like when David has his least amount of mana. Oh, there's a. Oh, I didn't even see that. I didn't notice the Flaring Pain. Did you see him discard that?
Yeah, it was a little earlier. It was after he got the seal countered, I believe.
Okay. He's gonna flash back a Flaring Pain.
Will?
Yeah, but that's gonna get countered. So.
I mean, you're not flashing back Flaring Pain unless you either have another one in your hand or you have a blast in play, right? I mean, you need another Flaring Pain in your hand or you need a Pyroblast or a Red Blast because you don't want your Flaring Pain to get countered.
I could see the situation like maybe you're just trying to kill the tokens at this spot, but like it's certainly an uphill battle and you just have to draw the second Flaring Pain. But
yeah, I think the tokens are irrelevant.
Okay, he's gonna use a red elemental blast. Thank you for the subscription, Phil.
Phil Nguyen.
Right. Counterspell got countered. So now Will has a very short window to deal damage with his spells.
Start tapping them mountains, boy.
But kind of an awkward thing is like a card like Mana Leak is better here. David doesn't have blue up.
Oh, leading with Fireblast.
Well,
interesting.
That might be a Mana Leak thing. He's going to Mana Leak, and so I think the thought process is here is because the Flaring Pain has been resolved, that just like cutting off Will on mana is pretty effective because the next turn they'll have the Circle Protection back online. Alright, so Fireblast is resolved. David does fall down to 10.
So you got a bolt?
Oh. Yes. Down to 7.
Do you have another blast?
And, I mean, this is really awkward now because there's 2 rings.
Yeah.
So now, like, drawing lands has a lot of value for Will.
I mean, David's got swords to Plowshares.
It might, I mean, swords
and factories.
Yeah, swords might be used on your own creature here. I mean, I could see attacking with a Mishra's Factory and then pumping it, then gaining 3. Or maybe just pumping itself and gaining 4. All right, we got an impulse. We're activating a factory. Okay, the factories are getting it pumped, so it has 4 toughness or 4 power, and it does get swords.
Yeah.
So it'll go up to 7. So a little more comfortable.
Why didn't he swing with it first?
He wanted to gain 1 more life.
Gotcha.
So I feel like you might need to attack with the other token in that spot, right? Like you still have the circle. Ooh. I guess I will note that every spell that will cast, he'll have to take damage as long as he has a double Barbarian Ring. Oh yeah, I guess chat's talking about whether there's absorb.
Yeah.
It would be a good absorb. Nope, there's a mana leak though.
Excuse me.
I think David's considering whether he wants to get aggressive with this Mistress Factory. And I do like it. Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're attacking for 4. Will is going to take it. I think I would block with the pup there on the Mistress Factory. I think that probably buys you the most time. All right, gonna add a Mog Fanatic.
Forbid. David forbids it.
Forbidden, the Forbidden Mog Fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the pressure keeps coming. I guess now we got Will down to 5, and Will's packing up his cards. So
Yep.
I think David takes our first sideboard game and now is up 2-1. So, I mean, given that there was a Circle Protection in play, and like, I definitely thought that game was way closer than I guess I would have guessed. That Flare of Pain definitely swung things in Will's favor, and he did make the best out of a bad situation. So,
Yeah, just not quite enough.
okay, so I'm going to bring up the decks real quick again, because we did see some cards that we didn't touch on as much. I guess the Annuls we kind of brought up as like a side note, and we did see that one coming in. So of cards that we never saw. Did we see a Standstill that game?
No.
I don't think we did. We didn't see a Wrath. We didn't see any of the Disenchants. But we did see one for Factor Fiction. We did see Mana Leaks. So I think this could be a case where you're cutting the Standstills. So, and quick looking at Will's deck, we saw Flaring Pain and we saw a Red Elemental Blast and a Pyroblast. So those are the cards that we expected.
Take out those ball lightnings, Will.
Do you think they're better on the play though?
I just don't like them in the deck.
Okay.
It's just the odds of drawing them later in the game when you're trying to go like mana for mana, card for card. I don't like them in the matchup, but now, having said that, Will's gonna like drop one in a pivotal moment and swing through for damage. So I'll eat crow if and when it happens.
All right, so we're gonna kick things off. Will's gonna start off with a Barbarian Ring. That
And a
is
Fanatic.
interesting. So, yeah, I mean, we've seen it in previous matches, like David get kind of aggressive and attack early, and with Will taking damage from all the spells that he plays, we'll see if that comes into play with how quickly that David can kill Will.
There's the Furnace.
David has a turn 2 Furnace. He has Faerie Conclave untapped. So in theory, there could be like a card like blue, or there's a blue Hydroblast there. Okay, that is for destroying a Mogfanet. That on its way out, it will deal damage. And we'll add another Mogfanetic, but still has to take a damage since he still only has that Barbarian Ring in play.
17 all.
Yeah, certainly Will wanted some more lands, and like that being your only one. I guess, I mean, this is a matchup where your life total doesn't matter as much, but it'll be interesting to see if it cuts down turns off of David killing Will. All right, Mogfanatics are attacking. There is a Mishra's Factory that's activated. Oh, and there's blue mana left up. Interesting. Yep. So presumably that's with another Hydroblast. So if Will's in this situation, yeah, because you block a Mogfanatic, and you can't sack the other Mogfanatic to kill it. Yep.
Teferi's response. Let's see it.
Could be a Teferi's response. It could just be
I really want to see it.
You could just pump the factory. I mean, this is a spot like maybe you would want to like just pump the factory. It's awkward then because like then you can't use the blue blast on this turn to kill a Mogfanatic. Because otherwise they would just shoot the factory. Okay. So factory gets in the way of a Mogfanatic. There's no good way for Will to profitably exchange there. So this is a situation where things look good for David.
Yeah, this game might be over.
I mean, certainly if Will starts drawing lands, like I mean, his hand must be all spells if he hasn't drawn any land. So
it's probably 2 Ball Lightnings in a Sulfuric Vortex.
He has had a lot of 1-drops, so he's had 3 Mogfanatics, a Shock, and a Jackal Pup. But in response, we're gonna have a Factor Fiction. There is an Annul, a Factor Fiction, a Wrath of God, an Adarkar Wastes, and a Flooded Strand. Here's a spot where Wrath of God looks okay. It's put with extra white mana. I think I might be tempted to put those up. So Adarkar Waste, Flooded Strand, and Wrath of God goes to hand for David.
I glanced away for a minute. Which pile did he take?
He took Wrath of God, Adarkar Wastes, and Flooded Strand.
Oh wow!
So the Factor Fiction, and Annul. That was the fiction half.
Got it.
Yeah, and I guess there's a Phyrexian Furnace in play, so like that'll kind of edge David a little bit against the Barbarian Ring if it ever gets down to that point. Wrath of God takes out the creatures. David has to take a point to cast it, and the Mogfanatic deals a damage on the way out. Will is able to resolve a Seal of Fire.
This is a game state where a Standstill would just be so backbreaking for Will.
Yeah.
If his Barbarian Ring doesn't kill him first.
A Grim Lavamancer. This one... Okay, and a fetch land. How many cards does Will have in hand? Is it like 3 or 4?
I don't know. Good question. The crowd is is rooting for a Dust Bowl here. They've got their torches and their pitchforks. They've gathered around and they're chanting Dust Bowl. Yeah, I think the writing's on the wall here.
Will down to 8. Yeah, with a Cycle Decree putting 3 tokens in play and the Mishra's Factory that allows to pressure and a second one to protect against the Seal of Fire. Will has just 3 or 4 cards, I think it is. And Fireblast currently not online thanks to Barbarian Ring. I mean, so if that Barbarian Ring were a mountain, do you think? I mean, Will has taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 6 or 7 damage off of it. Do you think if Will was at 14, that like this game? I don't know if this game would feel different.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, David's a very good player, and it certainly feels like this final came down to some variance with David getting his 1 COP pretty early on in the last game, and then Will not drawing enough mana this game. I wish these games would have been a little closer.
Right, Will is at 7. Gonna cast another seal. What's David doing something on the turn?
Probably.
Or is this in? Oh, we haven't absorbed. Oh god, this is just a insult to injury.
Just a little bit of insult for sure.
Rubbing salt in the wounds. Yeah, so David comfortably at 15 with a good board presence and Will tight on mana the entire game. I think we are going to see David Daniel be our Spring Fling champion as he activates some man lands and going to get aggressive.
Yep. He's just going to swing for the bleachers here.
All right,
he's bringing the Conclave as well.
Yep.
That's played, David Daniel. Very well played all tournament.
All right, we have a champion, yeah. So had David showing a hand of Counterspell, Forbid, Disenchant, and a couple lands. So still had some counter magic.
Terrible cards. Just absolutely terrible. Rubbish.
Yep. All right, I'm going to jump down to the players. We're going to unmute them, and we're going to listen in, and then we'll have some questions. Chat, if you have any questions for our players, type it in the chat. We'll see if we can ask them. But here we go.
Damn. What's up, gents? Can you hear
Hello,
me?
players. You guys have us unmuted?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, we knew if Will was leading off with a Barbarian Ring on turn 1 that there probably weren't any other lands in his hand. And
best card in my deck.
Yeah.
Will's Barbarian Ring.
So. So, Will, do you feel like mulliganing is really punishing, or do you think the hand was good enough to kind of risk that you could go, if you went a few turns without drawing a land, you'd still be in okay shape?
That one, I felt fine with it. Like, I had it. I think it was two or three Fanatics, or 2 Fanatics, 1 Lavamancer.
Okay.
So I had 3 1-drops I could play. Plus, I think I had a Bolt. Like, I don't know. It felt fine. Sucked not drawing one. David, didn't stumble at all those last couple of games, and everything was boom, boom, boom. So there's no real good opportunity to capitalize. Outside of that second game, when I think I was being too conservative, and normally my principle is pop the still as soon as possible, and for whatever reason I didn't, and that just gave him too much time.
You may or may not want to hear this. I did not have the Decree of Justice.
I mean, you played it off like you did, and that was
Yeah.
wonderful. That made me hesitate 100%.
Yeah, I needed. If you just attack 6 times, I die. Like I literally had nothing, but I like needed you to not attack. Me
Well, I mean, like if you're in that spot though, like if you're Will, you have 4 mana untapped, and like if you cycle a Decree of Justice and block, and then have 3 power, and Will has nothing on the board, and then Will would have to break a standstill. Like I think Will just loses that game. Like if you do have Decree, so I think it's okay to not play into the standstill there and hope, because like Sligh actually does a pretty good job of playing around the standstill of like shaping cards. So I think it's fine to.
He's gotta have no burn though. I mean, he could just burn the token. As the first that Decree would have been for 1.
Yeah, but then you're breaking the standstill. I don't know. I mean, like,
and I had no mana. I would have had no mana. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It was it was a long shot, but I had to try.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And then game 3, I took a line that probably wins the game if he doesn't have a swords, and swords his own creature, and sometimes you just don't win that line, and that's okay.
Yeah, that was a really good. I actually didn't have it. I had the impulse. I was like, well, I've got to find either the absorb or the swords. They were actually both in the 4, but the swords was a little bit better there.
Yeah, so I don't. Outside of the second game and maybe being too conservative, sometimes that's just the way this matchup goes. I think. David's an amazing player, and I have no regrets out of it. Obviously, I want to win, but what are you going to do sometimes?
Yeah, Will, it looked like when you're casting spells, you were pretty conscious of leaving 3 mana up most of the time. So were you just trying to make Mana Leak a dead card in any time?
Yeah, I was. I also trying to think of if there's anything I do better, outside of what I've said about game 2. And I think that's really the only thing that sticks. I mean, David drew, I think you drew Absorb each game, or 3 out of 4 games.
Yeah, I did draw it a lot.
And then one game, like you did an awesome job of filtering through to get to your singletons. Like the Cop Red was instrumental.
Yeah, it was in my opener. Like that hand was actually nuts.
Yeah, the Furnace was instrumental in that last game. I couldn't really capitalize on anything I was doing with a Lavamancer. So, yeah, I love this matchup. I think it's really interactive. The build Flint Espil that I'm playing, this really showed why Goblin Patrol is not a great card, or not the better card instead of Goblin Cadet instead of Patrol.
Right, game 1, I told him his guy was dead. I was like, you didn't pay the Echo. He was like, what fucking Echo?
He really thought it was Patrol. It wasn't Patrol.
Dave's got this big grin on his face.
I have no idea what that card is. I had to
Oh, that was the typing then. It was just looking it up. We thought it was like a rules questioning of like when it exchanges.
No.
No. He just completely thought it was Patrol.
Yeah. I don't read goblins. I don't even look at goblins. I just
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I think game 2 was just I don't know, maybe game 4 I should have mulliganed, but I felt like I'm on the play. I have 1-drops. I have a burn spell to get 1 factory. Also, I think game 5 you went like land, then factory. You hit your factories a lot. Like I don't think you ever did have a game where you didn't have a factory.
I mean, I hope not. That's my win condition. I'm about to just
no. I mean, like early is what I'm saying.
Sure. I mean, I keep those hands though. Like, I don't mind trading my lands for your spells. Like, I really don't, and I think that's an important distinction in this matchup. Like, if it takes you a Seal of Fire and a Lightning Bolt to kill my Mishra's factory,
sure.
I mean, that's kind of huge for me. The deck plays a lot of lands. I actually cut the Dust Bowls for the sideboard games, which I do against almost every aggro deck. I just take these out.
Yeah, I mean, game 2 I was probably just playing too conservative, and that's fine.
Yeah.
David, we did have a question about how you sideboarded.
Oh yeah. What's that?
Oh, we were just curious. We saw cards that you would want to bring in. We weren't exactly sure what were the bad cards. Okay, so Dust Bowl is a card that you took out just because it doesn't have enough targets. That is something I kind of thought about in the match, but didn't talk about at all. Okay. Dismantling
Factor
Blow.
Fiction, Wrath of God, Dismantling Blow, Humility, and 2 Standstills.
Okay.
And you brought in what? 3 blasts, a circle, a furnace.
3 blasts, furnace, circle to Faerie's response, Wing Shards, and all.
Oh, you did bring in response. Sweet.
Of course. What?
Sweet. I love that card.
Like I said, like I want him to target my Mistress Factory, like all the time. That's why I'm so aggressive. Like on turn 3, I just want to activate it and be able to spend the mana so I can make him fight over it. I think it's really essential to winning the early fights, because the only other interaction I have within like 3 or 4 turns besides counterspells is a swords. If I don't have a swords, I'm going to take, like game 1, I took 100 damage from guys. I mean, and that's the only other real way to mitigate that.
I'm just looking through chat to see people are talking about meme questions. I don't know what they have in store, but so far no one's really asked any questions for our players.
Factory OP, yes, I agree.
How good was Wing Shards, David?
Don't play that card. It's so bad.
Okay.
What was the thought process behind it? Like just having it in your 75?
It was near me, and I needed a 15th card.
Okay.
I don't know.
Proximal.
Like I guess like goblins is probably where it would like shine the most.
Yeah, it's really good against goblins, and just every time I boarded it in, it was like shitty Wrath of God, and I don't know. It's bad.
Will, chat wants to know what color your pants are.
Red.
Red. Mystery solved.
Red pants.
Very
Why
cool.
is the red-black deck all foiled out, yet the blue-white deck is gold border? It's because I don't respect the blue-white deck. That's the actual reason. I don't love this deck. I love Dracoblast, obviously. I don't love this deck. I play it because I hate land tax.
I remember you talking about that.
I want to beat all the Parfait players enough times that they just stop it forever. So
did Brian.
Guess what I'm playing in the new monthly? Yeah.
Land tax. You're playing land tax.
Never.
Dracoblast.
I want to. One day. One day we'll get back there, but it will be when all the land tax players are sad and stop. But yeah.
Any other thoughts about the matchup, guys, or the tournament, or the decks that you played?
I just want to say I love everything you guys do. I love this format, and that you guys host these every month is fucking phenomenal, and I appreciate you guys a lot.
Thank you.
Super happy to have finally taken one of these cool ones down. I think I've only played in one Spring Fling before, but
I would say because you kind of had the break because you were starting your store, because you kind of only like started recently playing again, right?
Yeah, I finally, like, we got a couple employees. I got some days off. I've tried to play in a couple monthlies before, and I felt really bad because Andrew kept having to bug me. I just didn't have time to play my matches, but I'm in a spot where I feel comfortable, like I have enough time. So.
All right. Well, if you continue playing, I'm guessing it will be likely that we see you at the top tables again. So.
Yeah, we'll see. Super happy. Brian took down LobsterCon with the Furnaces main board.
Yeah.
A little chat. Oh yeah, you.
Come on, David. I'm right here.
I'm not sorry.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy you did as well.
Yeah, it's super cool. I feel like I've got a little lobster trophy, but I'm glad he brought it home. Very cool.
All right, Will, is there anything you want to add?
No, it's awesome playing in these. It was nice to make a good run with red again. I didn't have to play blue because I wish I didn't win with blue, so I could just keep playing red and people didn't think about blue. But no, red is making a comeback. We saw some great performances at LobsterCon with Sligh just barely being outside of that top 8, showing itself to still be a contender. So shout out to all my Sligh players. Shout out to David for being an awesome opponent and the awesome run and the win. And I'm okay with being the second place darling in this one. That don't bother me a bit.
I appreciate that. This was my vengeance for the month before.
It's all right. I'll just play Black Vices against you next month. Next time I see you, we'll get it back.
Stop it.
Yeah. Or I'll just put Black Vices in the sideboard of this.
That'll probably get me. I don't know. Take up my Disenchant though.
But no, it was a pleasure to play.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Players will let you go, and then Flint and I are going to wrap things up. But we want to thank you. Congratulations again, David, and job well done, Will.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Well played, guys.
GG's,
Well
Mr.
played.
Will.
Well, thank you.
Yep. Have a good night, guys.
Bye. Bye.
All right. So we will wrap things up. I feel like we're kind of just at a pre-modern. There's so many tournaments going on since we just finished up LobsterCon.
Yep.
We just finished up the Spring Fling, and it won't be long until just in about a month, that is less than a month, the Midwest Premodern Championship at Misty Mountain in Madison will be held, which you are going to be making an appearance at. I will be doing coverage with BK. I know Francisco is one who's flying in. There's rumors of a lot of people that were at LobsterCon that are going to try and make the trip out. So we'll see how many of those are true to their word or able to figure it out in their plans and make it out. So
yeah, come to the tournament, hang out. Let's go out afterwards. Madison is a fun city. We'll have a good time.
I guess just wrapping up for this tournament. Yeah, we had I can't remember exactly. I think it was like 108 players. So I'll try and get some data in terms of like what the metagame was or whatnot. I have most of the decks. I think there might be a few people who forgot to submit that I bothered and never followed up with. But yeah, there might be some interesting data that we can get from all this. But yeah, is there anything else you want to mention, Flint, before we go?
Do we want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, hey, we've still got some people in chat, so I guess we could probably make a really quick announcement here. So for those of you who had decided to stick around, we do have some news. So as most of you know, Mike and I run the Premodern Showdown series, and just want folks to know that it will be returning, and sooner than you think. So mark your calendars, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, July 13th, Thursday, July 13th, this summer, we will be resuming the Premodern Showdown series. So stay tuned for more information on Facebook, Discord, etc. We'll be releasing some other dates. We'll be releasing the players. It's going to be a great series. And so I think we're all looking forward to that.
Yep. So first we have the Midwest Premodern Championship that I'll stream, and then shortly after that, we will have the PSS 5. So sounds like people in the chat are excited, so as are we. But we'll have more details as we get a little bit closer. So stay tuned to the Premodern Facebook group or maybe my social medias as we get more information. But is there anything else you want to say before we head out, Flint? Otherwise, I'm ready to call it a night.
I don't think we can top that, so let's call it a night.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it. But until next time, take care.
Night, everybody.